اعلم هديت أن أفضل المنن علم يزيل الشك عنك والدرن ويكشف الحق لذي القلوب ويوصل العبد إلى المطلوب.
An exam or a test via Telegram. It's basically for those of you who've read it, you should know, it's a scenario-based test. It's a scenario-based test, and it's basically based on everything that we've studied so far. Everything that we've studied so far. So I want to just make sure that you know, or you understand the questions. You understand the questions. So let's just go through those questions quickly. I'm not going to give the answers, just the questions. Okay? So question number 1, John, who is not a Muslim, decided to pray the janazah prayer with his Muslim colleague Ahmed to offer support for Ahmed's deceased mother. Okay, so Ahmed had a friend, colleague called John. And John basically, Ahmed's mother, Allah yarhamha, she died. So John wanted to offer support. So John said, I'm going to come to you with the masjid. I'm going to come to the masjid and pray Salatul Janazah with you. Okay, so A, what is the ruling on this? Will John be rewarded by Allah? A, yes, because he prayed and Allah rewards those who pray and his intention was pure. B, no, because John is not Muslim. Or C, Ahmed will be rewarded only. Or D, we cannot say. We leave the matter to Allah Azza wa Jal. So that question, wadih, sah? It's clear. Question number 2, Aisha is in the middle of her salah. She suddenly remembered that she had to pick up her mother from the store. So she's praying, and then immediately she decided to abandon the salah. A few seconds later, she remembered that her sister is going to pick up her mother. So what is the ruling on Aisha's salah? A, it is invalid, null and void, because she decided to abandon the salah. B, since she did not physically leave the salah, then her salah is still valid. Or C, part of her salah is valid and the other part is invalid. Or D, we cannot say, it is in Allah's hands. Question 3, Hamza was playing with his 2-year-old son when suddenly his son urinated on his thawb. Hamza was too tired to change. Hamza was too tired to change. He's lazy, Hamza. So he went to the roof for a nap. Don't ask me why, but he went to the roof for a nap. While he was sleeping, it rained heavily, and the rain washed away the urine on his thawb. When Hamza woke up, it was time for Asr Salah, and his thawb was dry. So, question, is Hamza allowed to pray with this thawb, or does he change to another thawb? The answer is either A, B, C, or D. A, since he did not make the intention to wash his thawb from the urine, he cannot pray with that thawb. Or B, he is allowed to pray as the intention is not needed here. Or C, he should wash his thawb again with an intention, then he is allowed to pray. Or D, he should change his thawb just to be on the safe side. Okay? Question number 4. Who wants to read? Man yaqra. Who's going to read the questions? I'll give them the paper. Man yaqra, just the questions. Tfaddal, Abdullah. You have the questions, yeah? Tfaddal.
Zayd started to pray Dhuhr, then she remembered that she prayed Fajr without wudu. So she changed her intention that this Salah will now be Fajr. What is the ruling on her Dhuhr prayer and Fajr prayer?
Okay, so that's clear, right? Forget the ABC. You just move on to the next question.
Zayd notices the respect and honor given to the students of knowledge and a number of people that invite them to dinner. He also knows that there is a great reward in the Akhirah for the students of knowledge, so he applies to Medina University and gets accepted, intending to gain the respect of the people and the reward in the Akhirah.
So Zayd, he notices the honor given to Tulab al-Ilm, the students of knowledge, and that, mashallah, tabarakallah, they are always invited for food, for dinner and for lunch, and they are always elevated and honored. So he says, I want a piece of that action. I want to also get that same honor, but I also want the honor and the reward in the Akhirah. Okay, so what is the ruling here? A, because his intention is the Akhirah, he will be rewarded by Allah Azza wa Jal. Or B, since 50% of his intention is for the Akhirah and 50% is for the dunya, he gets rewarded for 50%. Or C, his action is rejected and he is sinful. 6.
You give your car to your best friend as a gift and demand £2,000 from him.
A, he must pay you £2,000. or B, he does not owe you anything because it was a gift. It was a gift, and gifts are free. Okay, so you say to your best friend, I'm giving you my car as a gift for £2,000. So your friend says, give me the keys. He takes the keys and he drives away, and you shout behind him, Ya akhi, taqillah, give me my £2,000. And he shouts back saying, what £2,000? You said gift. Okay, so what is the ruling here? Naam, fadal.
Uthman's main water supply and sewer were leaking into his neighbour's flat.
Exactly right. Naam, so Uthman, his water was leaking into the neighbour's flat. Okay, is the responsibility of fixing it, is it upon Uthman or is it upon the neighbour? Okay, Naam, 8.
Khadija's husband decided to take a second wife. Khadija told him to fear Allah, citing the principles of harm.
Naam, so Khadija's husband, he suddenly one morning woke up wanting to marry a second wife. And Khadija, she said to him, Ittaqillah, fear Allah. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, La darara wa la dirar. And she's a faqihah. So she said, Ad-dararu yuzal. Harm is to be eliminated. And she's more knowledgeable than him. So he's looked at her thinking, subhanallah, what have I done? So he goes to the mufti and the qadi, and he says, Ya Shaykh, I'm in a big problem. I married a second wife, but my first wife is citing the evidence, La darara wa la dirar. So what's the ruling here? A, what he did is wrong, as it causes his first wife harm, and harm is to be eliminated. Or B, what he did is permitted, as this harm is overlooked. Or C, he can only take a second wife if the first wife assures him that no harm will come to her. He needs her permission. What is the ruling? Naam.
Salih ate some garlic and onions an hour before the salah.
Naam, this is clear, right? What's the ruling? Naam, next.
While a woman is travelling, her menses stop, and the only source of water is a river.
Naam, the river is a public place. Okay, what should she do? What's the hukum and the ruling here? Naam.
Adam is in the middle of the desert and needs to pray. He doesn't know the direction of the Qibla, and it's time for salah.
Naam, what does he do? Naam.
Khadija cannot find water or any dust/dirt to make tayammum, and it's time for the salah.
Naam. So what does she do? Does she pray as she is, or is the salah lifted from her? Naam. Ismail
is stuck in a desert with a 500 milliliter bottle of water only. If he drinks it, he cannot make wudu, and if he makes wudu with it, he dies of thirst.
He only has this bottle of water in the middle of the desert. Okay, does he make wudu with it, or does he pray? Does he drink it? What does he do? If he makes wudu with it, he dies of thirst. If he drinks it, he can't make wudu with it. Naam.
Maymuna forgot to pray Fajr and only remembered 10 minutes before the Asr prayer entered. She is also yet to pray Dhuhr. What should she do?
Naam.
Abdullah needs to make Hajj and spend on his family, but he only has enough money to do one of two. What should he do?
Naam, what should he do? Make Hajj or spend on his family? Which one is akad? Akad al-wujub. Which one is more obligatory? Hajj or spending on his family? Juwairiya's son
urinated on her abaya. She forgot to wash her abaya and prayed with it.
Naam. So what is the ruling on her salah? Naam.
Maria prayed by mistake without wudu. What is the ruling here?
What is the hukum here? Naam.
Your 5-year-old son smashed your neighbor's window.
Naam. What should you do? So if your 5-year-old son smashed your neighbor's window, either A, you are sinful for not controlling your child and no liabilities upon you, or B, you are sinful and you are liable for damages, or C, you are not sinful and you are not liable for damages, or D, you are not sinful but you are liable for damages. Which one? Naam.
Michelle, who is not a Muslim, has many Muslim friends and hears a lot about Islam, and has even read a few books on the subject of Islam. She dies upon kufr, unfortunately.
Naam. So Michelle, she dies upon kufr, but she knows about the Prophet Muhammad, she's read about Islam. What is her hukum? What is her ruling? Either A, she is excused by Allah due to ignorance, okay? Or B, she is not excused and will enter the fire for all of eternity. Or C, we do not know. We cannot place a ruling on her. Or D, we pray for her, and then we go to her grave and place flowers on her grave, and then we bury her amongst the Muslims. Which one? A, B, C, or D?
Michael just accepted Islam. When he gets home, he is so happy that he opens a bottle of wine to celebrate. What is the ruling?
Michael just accepted Islam in the masjid. and he's so happy. No one told him about the hukum, the ruling of alcohol. When he gets home, due to his happiness, he does what is instinctive to him. He opens a bottle of wine from the fridge to celebrate. Okay? What is the ruling on him? Is he sinful or not? Nah.
Bernardo lives in the Amazon forest and has never seen any civilization. He has never heard of Islam before, and he dies upon this state.
Nah. So Bernardo, that's the only name I know that South Americans have. I think that's one of the most famous names. He lives in the Amazon forest. No civilization. He's never heard of anyone or anything. Never read a book in his life. Doesn't even know what a book is. Okay? He only knows what leaves and trees are. Never seen any civilization. What is he? He dies like this, upon this hal. Okay, what is his hukum in the akhirah? Na'am.
Iman did not know that you must wash your face when making wudu. So she prayed like this. What is the ruling on her salah?
So this Iman did not know that you have to wash your face. Okay? In wudu. So every day, in salah, she just makes what she thinks is wudu, but she doesn't wash her face, she washes everything else. What is the ruling on her salah? So ikhwani, my advice to you, before you even attempt to answer this question, أولا وقبل كل شيء, revise everything you've done. Do muraja'a. Muraja'a, revise everything. Go back to your notes, go back to the recordings fully. You've got 2 weeks to do this. And then, once you've revised, then sit down and answer these questions based on what you have learned. This shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes, really maximum. And you don't have to even write anything. Just circle the right answer. No dalil is required. This is based on fahm. This is an exam or a test that tests your understanding, not your hifz. Okay, I didn't ask about al-ahkam al-shar'iyya, al-ahkam al-taklifiyya, al-ahkam al-wad'iyya, what is mashaqqa, what is taysir, what is takhfif. ما سألتكم عن هذا. I didn't ask you about these things. Okay? So it's based upon your understanding, but you won't be able to answer these questions if you don't know these. If you don't know the al-mashaqqatu tajlibu al-taysir, al-umuru bimaqasidiha, al-ibratu bi'umum al-lafz. These qawaid that we've learned, if you don't know them and you don't do muraja'a, then this will be very difficult for you to answer. Okay? So that's the first thing that you should do. Also, you're allowed to work together. Okay? You're allowed to work together and discuss these answers. Why, for example, if someone says B, there's only one right answer, by the way, one correct answer in every question. There's no two correct answers, there's only one correct answer. So ask, if you've chosen one question, what is the dalil? What is the qaa'ida that you're basing this on? What is the principle? So inshallah ta'ala, the next time we meet, we're going to go through these questions and you have to justify why you've chosen this verbally. Okay? So we'll discuss, for example, question 1, if you've chosen B as your answer, then why? What is the dalil? Okay? So just to test, inshallah, your understanding. Alright? So inshallah ta'ala, take your time on this. You've got 2 weeks. Circle the answer. Print it out for me, please. Okay? You print it out for me. You all, emails, ikhwan fillah, emails, you don't need to send me an email if you live in Manchester. If you're from Manchester, you don't need to send me an email. Because, alhamdulillah, we are physically together. We're in the masjid, you can ask me, alhamdulillah, we all know where we live. So we're here, alhamdulillah. Emails are usually for students or for people that are not from the city, that maybe attend through online. So for them, because obviously they're not physically here, then yes, they can send an email. But if you're physically here, alhamdulillah, present in Manchester, and you're male, alhamdulillah, then you don't need to send an email. For the sisters that live in Manchester, obviously, understandably, they have to send an email, for obvious reasons. But you don't need to send an email. So please print this out, okay? And then put your name on it and answer these questions, inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. This is your copy, inshallah. Take this. طيب. Let's begin today's lesson, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu sallam ala ashraf al-anbiya wal-mursaleen. Nabiyina wa sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So this is lesson 7. Okay? And today's lesson is, we are going to be studying the lines 16 and 17. So the author, he says, وليس واجب بالاقتدار ولا محرم مع اضطرار وكل محظور مع الضرورة بقدر ما تحتاجه الضرورة. So he says, وليس واجب بالاقتدار. There is no wajib without ability. There is no wajib without ability. ولا محرم مع اضطرار, and there is no haram where there is necessity. Where there is no haram where there is necessity. وكل محظور مع الضرورة, and everything that is considered haram with necessity بقدر ما تحتاجه الضرورة, and everything that is haram is permissible with necessity in accordance to the necessity, in accordance to the need and the necessity. Okay? So, أولا, وليس واجب, wujub is wujub or wajib is ما أمر به الشارع على سبيل اللزوم. Wujub or wajib means that which the legislator has commanded with firm conviction. That which the legislator has commanded to with firm conviction. This is known as wajib. If the conviction is firm and mu'akkad, then this is known as wajib. And where he says وليس واجب بلا اقتدار, يعني اقتدار means ability. Words that are similar to اقتدار are استطاعة. مثلا يعني the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made Hajj obligatory. لمن استطاع إليه سبيلا, whoever is able to. And this ability goes back to physical ability or financial ability, depending on the ibadah and the worship. If it's zakah, then it's going to be financial ability. If it is salah, then it's going to be physical ability. Okay? So that's the meaning of istita'a. And وليس واجب بلا اقتدار ولا محرم مع اضطرار. So the opposite of ability is known as ajz. Okay, ajz, ayn jim zai, that means basically inability. Okay, that's why in the Arabic language the old woman is called ajuz. Okay, ajuz. Ajuz means old woman, because old women are, because of their old age, they're unable to do certain physical activities. So that's why they're known as ajuz. And he says اضطرار, and اضطرار comes from ضرورة. So basically ضرورة. So we've learned what wajib means, right? And we've learned what qudra and istita'a means, ability. We've learned, now we're going to learn what ضرورة means. What ضرورة means. And ضرورة, or عفوا قبل الضرورة, is محرم. قبل الضرورة is محرم, haram. And haram is ما نهى عنه الشارع على سبيل اللزوم. That which the legislator has prohibited with firm conviction is haram. That which the legislator has prohibited with firm conviction is haram. And now that we know what haram is, we move on to darura. Okay? And darura basically comes from restriction. Linguistically comes from restriction. That which is restricted is known as darura. And istilahan is basically it is anything that a darura, that which is done out of necessity, is something that is done, something that if the person does not do, or an act that if the person does not perform or do or practice this act, then this person will either lose one of three things. They will either lose their life, or loss of limb, or it will cause dire need. It will cause dire need and necessity. So this person will lose two things, either their limbs or their life. This is known as darura. Anything that, if you don't do this thing, this action that's haram, okay, then it will cause you to lose your limbs, your a'da, or it will cause you to lose your life. Okay? This is known as mada, as darura. So the first principle here, now that we know these words, the first principle that we're learning today is la wajiba ma'al ajz. There is no wajib where there is an inability. And this is min taysiri hadhi sharia. Okay? La wajiba ma'al ajz. La wajiba ma'al ajz. And this principle is a far', is basically derived from the principle that we learned last week, which was what? One of the لا واجب مع العجز resembles which principle that we learned last week? المشقة تجلب التيسير. المشقة تجلب التيسير. Harm brings about ease. Okay? So المشقة, difficulty and burden brings about ease. So لا واجب مع العجز means there's no wajib where there is inability. Okay? And the proof of this is أولا, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah as much as you can in Surah At-Tawheed verse 16. And also the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says إِذَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِأَمْرٍ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. If I command you to do something, then do as much of it as you can. And the hadith of Imran ibn Husayn, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says صَلِّ قَائِمًا, pray standing up. فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ, if you can't, فَقَاعِدًا, then sitting down. فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ, then if you can't, فَعَلَى جَنْبٍ, then pray on your side. Pray on your side. So some of the amthila and the examples of this qaa'ida is مثلا في العبادات in the salah مثلا, a person, everyone has to pray standing. Okay, and this is wajib. Praying standing is wajib. But if there is ajz or inability, that a person has a disability, they broke their ankle for example, or their leg for example, then there's ajz and inability. So this person, this wajib for that particular person is lifted and removed. Okay, because mada, because of the ajz, and that person prays sitting down. Similarly, if a person is unable to give full zakah, okay, so مثلا the person can't pay, for example, 1 sa', مثلا zakatu al-fitr. Let's use that as an example. Zakatu al-fitr in Ramadan is wajib, right? Upon everyone who has qutu yawmihi, the provisions of his day. If you have enough food to eat for 24 hours, zakat al-fitr becomes wajib upon you, and it's sa'an min tamr aw sha'ir aw bur. 1 sa' of qutul balad, 1 sa' of the food of the edible food of that particular country, right? And 1 sa' is about 3 liters. 1 sa' is about 3 liters. Okay? So if a person doesn't have 1 sa', they can't afford 1 sa', but they can afford half a sa'. Okay, half a sa'. Okay, 1.5 liters مثلا, then in that instance, this is what's wajib upon them. The other 1.5 is lifted, they don't have to pay it, but 1.5 they have to pay. Similarly, if a person cannot make hajj, these are just examples. A person can't make hajj financially, so a person, for example, can't make hajj physically. Physically, they cannot go to Mina, do tawaf around the Kaaba, Muzdalifah. Hajj requires a lot of physical effort. They can't do it. Okay, they're sick, they're too ill. But they have the money to do it. And their illness is مِمَّا لَا يُرْجَى بُرْءُهُ. It's an illness that in normal circumstances people don't become better, they aren't cured from it. So they may be terminally ill with cancer or with something else. So in that instance, but they have money. That person, hajj is not removed from them. The only thing that's removed is the physical act of hajj. But as for hajj itself, it's not removed from them, so they have to pay someone to make hajj on their behalf. Okay? So la wajib ma'al ajz doesn't mean that the whole wajib is removed, but it means that that some of the wajib, if the wajib can be divided, then some of the wajib is removed, that part of the wajib that they can't do physically or financially, but the rest of the wajib is still wajib upon them. There are 2 reasons or 2 situations in which a wajib is lifted from a person. The first, so again, I repeat, 2 situations in which wajib is removed from a person. Number 1, ma'al ajz, when the person is ajiz, the person is unable or incapable of doing that particular wajib. And this is wadih, right? We've just discussed this. The second hal or situation is when performing the wajib leads to unnecessary difficulty and burden, leads to excessive burden, excessive difficulty. Okay? Excessive difficulty. And the proof of this is the statement of Allah in Surah Al-Hajj verse 78, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Allah hasn't placed any burden and difficulty upon you in this religion. Question: if a person is able to perform part of a wajib, or part of something that's wajib, but unable to perform other parts of that wajib, what is the ruling? Okay, we just touched upon it now. There are different aqsam. So a person is able to perform some of the wajib, but they can't perform all of the wajib. Okay, so there are aqsam. The first qism and the first category of this is that that part of the wajib that the person is able to do is a wasila, is a means, only a means to the wajib. Do you understand? It's a wasila lil wajib. It only leads to the wajib. Okay? So for example, a person is too ill to pray in Salatul Jama'ah. Let's use Friday as an example. A person is too ill to pray the Jum'ah prayer. Too sick. Okay? But they're able to put on their clothes. They can actually wear their thobe and their clothes and put itr on and make wudu. They're able to do that. Okay? So in this instance, they can do part of the wajib, because putting on clothes is a means to the worship. You don't go to the masjid naked, right? You have to put on your clothes. So they can put on their clothes, which is a wasila, just a means and a medium, but they can't actually physically go to the masjid and perform Salatul Jama'ah. So the ruling of this is, if the wajib is a means, okay, and a medium, then this wajib, you don't have to do it. The shari' and the legislator is not going to say to that sick person, you can put your clothes on, right? Yes, put your clothes on. No, he's not going to say that. The shari' doesn't make that obligatory. Put your clothes on and stand outside the door until the jama'ah prayer is finished. La. Okay? That's not wajib and obligatory. So that's if the wajib is a wasila. The second category is if the part of the wajib that is that the person is able to do is basically in and of itself a worship. So the person is able to do part of the worship, but they can't do another part of the worship. What they can do is in and of itself a ibadah. Okay? Then in that instance, it is wajib upon them to perform and to do what's wajib upon them, such as in zakah. A person has to pay 1 sa', okay, 1 sa' of rice, okay, but they can't afford 1 sa'. They can afford 1 mud, which is a quarter of a sa'. 1 mud, which is a quarter of a sa'. That's it. That's all that they can afford. So we say to them, pay that mud. Pay that mud. Okay, Jamil. Number 3, this is very important, this one, if the part of the ibadah is that the person is able to perform is not an ibadah. If the person was to do it, that part of the ibadah is not an ibadah, okay, then it is not wajib upon them to perform any aspect of that ibadah. Example, a person who's ill and sick in Ramadan, they can fast until dhuhr. They can only fast until dhuhr. After dhuhr they can't. The legislator is not going to say to them, fast until dhuhr, and then after dhuhr you can break your fast. La. Because fasting until dhuhr only, you won't be rewarded for it. The reward will only happen if that person fasts until until maghrib. Okay. So that's the first qaa'ida, which is ماذا؟ لا واجب مع العجز. Okay, there is no wajib where there is inability. The second qaa'ida and principle is ولا لا محرم مع الضرورة. Okay, there is no haram where there is necessity. There is no haram where there is necessity. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in Surah Al-An'am, verse 119, وَقَدْ فَصَّلَ لَكُمْ مَا حَرَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ إِلَّا مَا اضْطُرِرْتُمْ إِلَيْهِ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says that, and Allah has mentioned in detail that which He has made haram upon you, except those things that are out of necessity, those things that you do out of necessity. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, وَإِذَا نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, يعني, and if I prohibit you from doing something, then abandon it. And this qaa'ida is another principle which follows on from the principle of last week, which is al-mashaqqatu tajlibu taysir. So here we learn from this qaa'ida that the haram makes the darura halal. Does that make sense? So haram makes the darura halal. Haram makes that which is darura, it makes it halal. Okay? But there are certain conditions for this. This is not ليس على إطلاقه. ليس على إطلاقه. There are certain conditions and shurut. Okay? This is very important. So nowadays, people abuse this qaa'ida and principle, and they do certain acts that are haram, and they say, Wallahi lil-darura. Ya akhi, why did you take riba? Wallahi darura. I needed a mortgage. I needed a home. I'm tired of renting. Ya akhi, why did you take this overdraft, which is riba? Darura, akhi, I needed that fridge. Ya akhi, why have you never made any hajj, although you're able to do hajj? Darura, akhi, I had to pray, I had to feed my family. Darura, darura, darura. Every time they use darura. Okay? So this qaa'ida principle, many people have become fuqaha in this qaa'ida, and they've become very knowledgeable with this qaa'ida, a corrupt knowledge, not the right way of knowledge. So it is not ala itlaqi, it's not like that. It's not as straightforward as saying that where there is necessity, the haram is lifted. Okay? So some people, wallahi, I'm ill and I'm sick, and the only time I become better is when I drink wine and alcohol, and it's darura for me. Okay? Or I have this particular illness, I have to take some cannabis and weed, and I'll be better, and it's darura. الضرورات تبيح المحظورات هكذا يقول لك الضرورات تبيح المحظورات. So ليس على إطلاقه. Okay? So here we're going to learn the conditions of this qaa'ida. When is the haram or the hurma, or the fact that something is haram removed because of necessity? When? If these conditions are met. If these conditions are met. Condition number one, that the darura has to be a real darura. The necessity has to be a necessity that is going to occur. That is going to occur. Okay? If the necessity is not going to happen now, but it may happen sometime in the future, then this is not allowed. This is not allowed. Okay? مثلا, a person is starving in the middle of the desert. A person, is in the desert, sorry. They're not starving, they're in the desert. And they're feeling fine, they're not starving. Okay? They come across a dead animal, and they say, I will be starving soon, I'm going to eat this dead animal now. Okay? What is the ruling on this? We say no, you're not allowed to eat this dead animal for fear of what's going to happen in the future. For fear of what's going to happen in the future. Okay? So this is not allowed. Similarly, some people مثلا say, Wallahi, I can't get a job. I have to shave my beard off, change my name from Mohamed to John, and remove every symbol of Islam from myself. And then I will get a job. And this is darura. We say to him, how do you know you're not going to get a job in a few months' time? How do you know that you're not going to get a job in a year's time? This necessity that he's talking about is not waqi'ah. So this is a very important shart and condition. The second condition is that there cannot be anything that is mubah that can take the place of this darura. There can't be anything that's mubah or allowed that can take the place of this darura. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, Surah Al-Baqarah verse 173, فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. So whoever is forced to use this haram, whoever is due to necessity and need is forced. غَيْرَ بَاغٍ is without desiring haram. Okay? Without desiring haram. غَيْرَ بَاغٍ means a person who loves to do the haram although he can do the halal. Okay? He knows there's a halal way of earning rizq, but he wants this haram way of earning rizq. Okay? مثلا, as an example. So a baghi, غير baghin is a muridin lil haram مع إمكانه على الحلال مع إمكان قدرته على الحلال. So if a person غير باغٍ means a person who is able, who basically loves the haram while having the ability to do the halal. Allah is saying if this is the case, then there's no darura here. ولا عاد. Allah Azza wa Jalla says غير باغٍ ولا عاد. And al-adi is a person who takes more than they need from the darura. A person هو الذي يأخذ من الضرورة فوق حاجته. Okay, this is a person who takes from the darura more than they need. More than they need. Does that make sense? So the second condition is that there cannot be something that's mubah that takes the place of this darura. Okay? الشرط الثالث is that the person takes from the haram, takes that which they need only from the haram, and they don't take more than they need. Okay? And the scholars, they say they have a separate qaa'ida principle, because this is so important. They have a separate principle which is الضرورات الضرورة تقدر بقدرها. الضرورة, necessity, is taken in proportion to what you need. Necessity is taken in proportion to what you need. Okay, and this is why the author, he says بقدر ما تحتاجه الضرورة. He says in the bayt بقدر ما تحتاجه الضرورة. نعم. مثلا, there is only a male doctor in the whole village, no female doctors, only a male doctor, and this sister, she becomes sick, ill, very ill. She needs to see a doctor. There is no male doctor, and this sickness of hers means that the male doctor has to see some part of her awrah. He has to see some part of her awrah. Okay, so this is now a darura, and he has to see, in order for him to prescribe a dawa and a ilaj and to give her medicine, he has to see the symptoms. Okay, so we say to this doctor that he is only allowed to look at that part of the awrah that he needs to look at, and not the other part of the awrah. Does that make sense? So if he needs to look at مثلا her thigh, her right thigh, مثلا, he cannot look at her left thigh. وهكذا. Obviously this is if there is no female doctor, nurses, etc. Okay? And we say if he doesn't have to physically look, but someone can take a picture, a zoom in picture of the illness, مثلا, and if that's all he needs, then we say do that, because that's أخف على المرأة. This is better, and inshallah ta'ala for them. وهكذا. And this qaa'ida, this principle, which is what? What is the principle we're studying now? ولا محرم مع الضرورة. Okay, pay attention. We're moving from principle to principle, so you need to know what principle we're on. نعم أخي.
الضرورات تبيح المحظورات في نفس
وهي تحت هذه القاعدة. نعم, هي تحت هذه القاعدة. But the قاعدة is ولا محرم مع الضرورة. And then الضرورات تبيح المحظورات والضرورة تقدر بقدرها is in there, is in the قاعدة. نعم. طيب. So there is another principle, and the reason why I'm giving you these principles, they all have similar meanings, my brothers. Okay? Similar meanings, but it's important for you to know these principles so that when you see them, you recognize them. The scholars, they also say ما جاز لعذر بطل زواله. ما جاز لعذر بطل زواله, which basically means anything that is allowed due to necessity will no longer be allowed if the necessity disappears. Okay? ما جاز لعذر بطل زواله. I repeat, anything that is allowed due to necessity will no longer be allowed if the necessity disappears. Anything that is allowed due to necessity will no longer be allowed if the necessity ماذا disappears. نعم. So that person who's dying of starvation مثلا is no longer starving. That's it. So that means that they can't eat dead animals again. And the proof of this is Surah An-Nisa, verse 103. Allah says, فَإِذَا اطْمَأْنَنْتُمْ فَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Salatul Khawf. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, after Salatul Khawf, when you've prayed, and in Salatul Khawf, there are certain pillars of the Salah, like At-Tuma'nina, that are removed. basically they're no longer wajib because of the state of the Muslims, the fear. So it's called the salah, the fear prayer. So Allah is saying, فَإِذَا اطْمَأْنَنْتُمْ, if that fear is no longer there and you're tranquil and you're safe, then pray properly. فَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, pray, establish the prayers, okay, in its appointed time. So that's how many conditions do we have now? 3. Condition number 4 is أن تندفع الضرورة بهذا المحرم, that you have to make sure that this darura is able to remove the haram. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it? This darura that you have to do, this darura, this necessity, which this haram thing that you have to perform in order to remove this necessity has to be able to remove the need and the necessity. Okay? If it isn't, then there's no point doing it. Number 5 is that the haram, okay, the haram has to be less in, the haram has to be less than the necessity. Okay, that which is haram, the haram thing that you're doing has to have less of a sin, has to have less of an effect and less of a sin than the darura itself. Mathalan, a person is told that if you don't kill Zayd, Zayd who's sitting next to him, if you don't shoot him, I will kill you and I will shoot you. Okay? So this person now, in order to save his life, he has to kill another life. So the darura and the haram are similar. Okay? Are similar. So in that instance, we say to this person that they cannot kill another life to save themselves. Remember, we studied this. And some issues and masail, ikhwan, are mutakarrira. Some masail have 2 qawaid or even more, 3 principles that you can utilize to get to the same conclusion. To get to the same conclusion. Now, the next principle is وترجع number 18 وترجع line number 18 وترجع الأحكام لليقين فلا يزيل الشك لليقين. And ترجع الأحكام لليقين, all of the ahkam and the rulings, they go back to yaqeen. They go back to ماذا? Yaqeen. They go back to certainty. فلا يزيل الشك لليقين. So doubt does not remove certainty. Doubt does not remove certainty, and this is من القواعد الكلية الكبرى. Remember, we studied in the first few lessons. This principle is one of the major principles, the major 5 principles, which is اليقين لا يزول بالشك. اليقين, the scholars they say اليقين لا يزول بالشك. Yaqeen, certainty, is not removed with doubt. Okay, is not removed with doubt. Or ما ثبت بيقين لا يرتفع إلا بيقين. They also say this as well. That which is established with certainty cannot be removed except with ماذا? Except with certainty. Cannot be removed except with certainty. Okay? So this is a very important principle. It gives you ease of it's a principle that gives you peace of mind. It's a principle really that gives you peace of mind in your day-to-day life, in your ibadat, in your worships, etc. And yaqeen, the word yaqeen means it is knowledge that is coupled with certainty. It is knowledge. Yaqeen is a state of being that basically has no doubt in it. So when we say al-yaqeen la yazulu bishak, yaqeen is not removed ماذا? With doubt. Is not removed with doubt. Okay? And in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He uses the word dhan, sometimes dhan, to mean yaqeen. The word dhan, أحيانا هذه الكلمة تأتي بمعنى اليقين. مثلا Allah Azza wa Jal, He says إني ظننت أني ملاق حسابي, أي إني تيقنت. إني ظننت, I am certain, or I was certain, أني ملاق حسابي, that I would be held to account. Okay, so this yaqeen, this dhan is yaqeen. Also, dhan, the word dhan can be suspicion as well in the Quran. can be false suspicion. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, وَمَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, Surah Al-Najm, verse 28, وَمَا إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ. Indeed, they only follow their suspicions and their false suspicions. Okay? So dhann, if the word dhann, إذا جاء الظن في معرض الذم فمعناها التوهم. If the word dhann is mentioned in the context of something that's blameworthy, then it means suspicion and it means doubt. If the word dhann is mentioned in the context of madh, in the context of praise, then it means yaqeen. Then it means ماذا? Yaqeen. Okay? So what does this qaa'ida mean? So basically, is it possible, let me ask you a question, is it possible for one person in one situation about one thing to have yaqeen and doubt at the same time? Is it possible? How? One person, one situation can have yaqeen and shak. You think, who says it's possible? It's impossible, right? Why do you have shak? عندكم شك. من عنده يقين في هذه المسألة؟ نعم. It's impossible, إخوان. You can't have yaqeen and shak in one place. Now, can you doubt that you're in Masjid Salam and have yaqeen that you're in Masjid Salam at the same time? No, it will be impossible. Okay? So, if that's the case, then how do you answer the fact that when the qaa'ida, the principle says al-yaqeen, certainty, cannot be removed with doubt? Okay? What is the point of saying that? شو الفائدة من هذا؟ نعم.
Does the doubt come after the yaqeen?
Okay, so if the doubt comes after the yaqeen, there's no yaqeen, right? So there's doubt. So why is the principle telling us that certainty cannot be removed with doubt? Everyone doubts. كلنا نشك, صح? So when we have the doubt, there is no yaqeen, right? So the principle and the ulama, these major scholars, did they get it wrong? What are they talking about? Now,
You can be praying and you have yaqeen that you did the wudu and everything, but when you have like a doubt, did I step on something which is like not like pure? So you have yaqeen that you did the wudu and everything, but the one is, am I like pure completely? Is my fault like clean?
but then there's doubt.
But the yaqeen is that you did the wudu.
So the yaqeen was there before,
And that, yeah.
and then the doubt came afterwards.
Yeah.
But then there's no yaqeen then.
Still yaqeen, but it's not even stronger than the doubt.
There is no yaqeen. There's doubt.
It's not stronger than I'm do the wudu.
No.
This is certainty.
No.
But after that, I want to go to. I don't know if I have anything like impure my clothes or not. Yeah, but I still do a wudu. Then there's no.
But جاء الشك, صح؟
جاء الشك ولكن عندي قوة أنا عارف أنا متوضئ.
نعم.
ولكن أصابني شيء من النجاسة أو أنا متوهم أصابني شيء.
طيب في الأول كان عندك يقين, صح؟
أنا متوضئ وما زلت.
كان عندك يقين.
وما زلت عندي يقين.
طيب ثم جاء الشك بعد هذا اليقين.
ولكن
طرأ الشك.
أضعف من اليقين.
الشك كان أضعف, لكن في شك.
يوجد شك ولكن لا يوجد.
حتى لو كان نسبة 1%.
يوجد شك ولكن لا يوجد الحكم الذي هو الأصل.
لكن في شك.
يوجد شك.
إذن كيف اليقين والشك يجتمعان؟ يعني هنا القاعدة تقول اليقين لا يزول بالشك, صح؟
نعم.
طيب هذا الشك الذي طرأ عندك
بعد اليقين.
بعد, لكن في شك.
طبعا ولكن ترتيبه بعد اليقين.
أنا فاهم, أنا أفهمك, I understand what you're saying, واضح يعني. لكن شوف إخواني, the ulama, the meaning of this, يعني we have to understand the أقوال of أهل العلم, right? Someone can come and give you this shubha, right? What the ulama mean here is حكم اليقين. حكم اليقين. اليقين, حكم اليقين لا يزول بالشك الطارئ. That's what they mean. Do you understand? بالشك الطارئ. Okay? Hukmul yaqeen, the ruling of yaqeen, not the yaqeen in your heart. There is no more yaqeen now, there's shak. We don't care about the yaqeen in your heart. It's gone. What we mean is the ruling of yaqeen. Al-yaqeen al-lazim, the yaqeen that you had previously, okay, cannot be removed with the shak and the doubt that has come and occurred now. فهمتم؟ واضح؟ طيب مثلا الآن, okay, you've just يعني let's use Zayd as an example. Zayd has just made wudu. He's prayed Salatul Maghrib. He knows he made wudu. He's yaqeen. He knows. Then Zayd goes and plays football in the park. He goes to Alexandra Park and he plays football until just 30 minutes or 15 minutes before Isha. Then he forgets. He scored a hat-trick, mashallah. And he forgets what he did. Okay? And the fact that he made wudu or not. So he comes just before 15, he enters the masjid and he says, am I upon tahara or not? Is there shak? Yes. Firstly, is there shak? Yes or no? The shak has come, right? Is there yaqeen? No. Was there yaqeen in the past? There was yaqeen in the past, right? Okay. So now let's concentrate on his present situation, the shak that he has. So the shak now is telling him, do you have wudu or not? So is the shak whether he has wudu or not? Or is the shak whether he made wudu in the past or not? Which one? The first one, whether he has wudu now or not. Whether he has wudu now or he doesn't, right? So this shak is a shak that appeared after the yaqeen or before the yaqeen or during the yaqeen? After the yaqeen. So it is a intruder, right? The shak is an intruder. It's in Arabic, what do they call intruder? Harami, yani? They call the intruder someone who's a thief, yani. Sariq, yani. The shak is the sariq and the thief, the intruder that has entered the heart. Okay? So the shak now is the intruder, right? So when the ulama, they say, al-yaqeen la yazulu bi-shak, yaqeen is not removed with certainty, they mean the yaqeen that is the asl. The asl in your heart was that you had yaqeen. The yaqeen is gone now, miskeen, rah. But it doesn't matter, we can get it back. We're saying to the yaqeen, come home, come back home, ta'al. Okay? This shak is an intruder, we're going to kick it out and we're going to take the yaqeen that we had previously. Do you understand what I'm saying, ikhwani fillah? So that's what the ulama, rahimahumullah ta'ala, mean. Now, so the meaning is al-yaqeen as-sabiq la yazuru bil-shak at-tari' in Arabic language. Al-yaqeen as-sabiq, the previous yaqeen, is not removed with the newly discovered shak, with the newly discovered doubt. That's what it means. Okay? And shak is doubt. Shak is doubt. What does doubt mean? Shak is basically تجويز أمرين لا مزية لأحدهما على الآخر. It is استواء أمرين. It is for two things to be equal in your eyes, in your sight. And there is nothing that gives preference to the other for you. There's nothing that gives preference to one over the other for you. There is two possibilities, 50-50, 50%, 50%. It's called, that's ihtimal mutasawi, doubt. You don't know, am I upon wudu or not? You've totally forgotten. So what do? You go and you base the hukum of your wudu on what? On what? On the yaqeen that you had previously. So mathalan, this Zayd who just played football in Alexandra Park had yaqeen that he basically made wudu and prayed Maghrib in Masjid Salam, right? So the shak is whether he has wudu or not. Okay? Let's use Ammar. Ammar prayed Salatul Maghrib in Masjid Salam. Then he went home and he had to go to the bathroom, the toilet. Before he went to Alexandra Park, he went to the toilet. He remembers this fully. That's the yaqeen for him. Then he plays for until just 15 minutes before Isha, he plays football. Then he enters the masjid and he has shak. Did I make wudu or not? Did I make wudu or not? Okay, what was the yaqeen previously? That he went to the toilet. What is the shak? Did he make wudu or not? So the shak is in purification. Am I pure or not to pray? Right? He doesn't know whether he made wudu or not. So what is the hukum? What do we say to Ammar? Make wudu. Okay? Because the previous yaqeen takes the hukum and the ruling. The previous yaqeen was he had no wudu. The shak is basically removed here. The shak, which is, did I make wudu or not? Okay? Similarly, your best friend. Okay? You've known this person for 15 years, 10 years. You've known them for a long time. All you know about this person is khair. Okay? All of a sudden, your wallet is stolen. Khalas. And your wallet had lots of money in it. Okay? Lots of money in it. 300 pounds, let's say. Someone says to you, you know, that person who was your best friend, na'am, he's the one who stole it. Okay? What is the yaqeen here? That your best friend is a thief or someone honest? Someone honest. Okay? So that's the yaqeen. The shak is what? That he stole it on, and they give you evidences upon evidences. You see, you watched the other day. He's used your 300 pounds to buy the watch. Okay? So that's the shak. So the shak here is that your friend could have stolen your 300 pounds or not. Right? So that shak, is it strong enough to remove this yaqeen? No, it's not strong enough. Okay? So again, this qaa'ida gives you peace of mind. And that's why he says وَتَرْجِعُ الْأَحْكَامُ لِلْيَقِينِ. See حكم. He's talking about حكم اليقين, not ذات اليقين. What do we mean by ذات اليقين? The yaqeen in your heart. That can be removed. We're talking about the hukum of the yaqeen that was present in your heart. It's no longer there because shak and yaqeen can't be in the same place. You can't, like water and fire can't be in the same place. Na'am. And the evidences for this qaa'ida, number one, Allah Azza wa Jalla says in Surah Al-Najm verse 28, وَمَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. Surah Al-Najm verse 28. And also the hadith of Abdullah ibn Zayd, that the Prophet ﷺ, he was told of a man who thinks sometimes that he يُخَيَّلُ أَنَّهُ يَجِدُ الشَّيْءَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ. A man who doubts, sometimes he thinks that he has passed wind while in the salah. He's not sure. So this is a man who's praying and he thinks that he's passed wind while in the salah. Okay? فقال, the Prophet is asked about the hukum of this person. Should he leave the salah and abandon the salah, or should he remain in the salah? What did the Prophet say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? لا ينصرف حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريحا. This person cannot leave the salah and cannot abandon the salah until he hears a sound. He hears the wind passing. Okay? Or he smells it. يعني yaqeen. This person has to have mada? Yaqeen. The doubt is what for this person? That he passed wind. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes the shaitan blows on you. And you think you've passed wind, but you haven't. If you're in doubt, don't abandon the salah. Stay in the salah until you hear the sound or smell it. Okay? Also, the hadith of Abu Sa'id, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا شَكَّ أَحَدُكُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِ. If one of you doubts in his salah, has shak in his salah, فَلَمْ يَدْرِ كَمْ صَلَّى, and doesn't know how many he's prayed, how many rak'at he's prayed, أَثَلَاثًا أَمْ أَرْبَعًا, 3 or 4, the Prophet said, فَلْيَطْرَحِ الشَّكْ, let him remove the doubt, وَلْيَبْنِ عَلَى مَسْتَيْقًا, and let him build and base his ruling upon the yaqeen, upon the certainty. How clear is this hadith, ikhwan? This hadith is so clear. The Prophet said, فَلْيَطْرَحِ الشَّكْ, let him remove the doubt, وَلْيَبْنِ عَلَى مَسْتَيْقًا, and let him base the ruling upon the yaqeen, upon that. Look at how beautiful our Islam is, our religion is, subhanAllah. Also, this is ijma'. This qaa'ida, there is absolutely no khilaf between Ahlul Ilm. This is ijma'. This is ijma'. Na'am. Similarly, مثلا, a person doubts did he divorce his wife or not. Some men have waswas wal-'iyadhu billah. Every day they go into a sheikh, I think I've divorced my wife. What did you say? Wallahi, I thought of something. Or I said this, or whatever. Every single day, yani yashukun, subhanallah, the shaitan places so much shak in their heart. So the asl is that if a person doubts, هل وقع الطلاق أم لا? Did he divorce his wife or not? The asl is that this person did not divorce his wife. Okay? So this is the asl. And there are other qawaid and principles that I'm going to tell you now that are deduced and derived from this main principle. Okay? These qawaid are known as what? Dawabit. Remember dawabit? We took it in one of the first few lessons. Why are they known as dawabit? Why?
Because they control that
A particular issue. Because they control one particular fiqh chapter. It could be in buyu', it could be in one particular fiqh chapter. Okay? The first sub-principle is al-aslu adamul musqit wa baqa'ul wajib. The basic ruling is that the obligation is not lifted from a person. The obligation is not lifted from the person if that obligation was established previously. Again, I repeat, a wajib, an obligation, if it was established previously, then it is not removed from the person except with certainty. Mathalan, a person doubts, they knew the Salatul Asr, namu an Salatul Asr. They overslept and didn't pray Salatul Asr. Okay? So they're doubtful now. Did they pray Salatul Asr? Did they make up Salatul Asr or not? Was the wajib established upon them previously? Yes, how was it? They established it, they themselves established it. They have doubt. They know that they overslept for Salatul Asr. Okay? But the shak is now, did they pray Salatul Asr or not? So do we say to this person, you've prayed, or you haven't prayed? What do we say to this person? What do they have to do? They have to pray. Why? Because of this dhabit, that the basic ruling is, any wajib that has been established cannot be removed, okay, except with certainty. Except mada? With certainty. A person, mathalan, you've lent £300 to your friend. Your friend remembers. They remember that you lent them £300, but they forgot, did they give it back or not? They forgot, did they give it back or not? What's the ruling here? They still owe you. They still owe you. Okay? It doesn't matter if they say, Akhi, do you not remember? Wallahi, ma adri. La. They still owe you. Okay? Because the wajib has already been established upon them. Okay? The next principle, number 2, al-aslu baqa'u ma kana ala ma kan. These are simple principles, easy to understand, inshallah. Al-aslu baqa'u ma kana ala ma kan, which means all matters remain as they were in the past. All matters, they remain as they were in the past. Okay? So what that means, al-asl means, the principle is that if something was present in the past, it will also be present in the present. Okay? If something was present in the past, it is also present in the present. Okay? The third qaa'ida is al-aslu bara'atu dhimma. The asl is that a person is absolved of all guilt and responsibility. Okay? Al-asl, the person is absolved from all guilt, blame, and responsibility, and burden. Guilt, blame, responsibility, and burden. Okay? So what that basically means is that the asl is that nothing is wajib upon you. Okay? The asl is nothing is wajib upon you except with dalil. If someone says, mathalan, Ya akhi, you have to celebrate the Prophet's birthday, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You say to him, al-aslu bara'atu dhimma. Forget about going into we all know the ruling on this, but you can actually use this qaa'ida. Al-aslu bara'atu dhimma. You say to him, okay, the asl is that nothing is obligated, that there is no obligation upon me except with dalil. So, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Give me the dalil that celebrating the Prophet's birthday sallallahu is wajib. Also, this particular principle, which is al-aslu bara'atu dhimma, which is that the asl is bara'atu dhimma. Someone comes up to you. Your friend comes up to you and he says to you, Yahi, you owe me £300. And you look at him and say, well, I don't owe you anything. No, you owe me £300. And then he takes you to the head of your qabil, or the head of your tribe, or your father or your grandfather, and he makes a big case, you know, and then everyone is sitting round and they look at you and say, Yahi, give him his £300. What is the hukum here? What can you say to defend yourself in this very pressurized environment? Al-Aslu bara'at al-dhimma. You say, Yahi, give a dalil. Give me the evidence. Okay? The police stop you and they say to you, we saw someone that looks like you smashing a window or doing some crime. What do you say to the police? Al-Aslu bara'at al-dhimma. Okay? You obviously explain it to them and you say to them, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. What is the evidence, the proof that I smashed that window? Okay, what can you give as an evidence? You don't have to say anything. Okay, you don't have to even prove your innocence. The onus is upon them to prove your guilt. Do you understand? That's how it works. Okay. There's another Qaa'ida and basically there's a hadith that is used as a proof for this. And this hadith is in and of itself a Qaa'ida, my brothers. And that the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Al-bayyinatu ala al-mudda'i wal-yaminu ala ish? Ala man ankar. Al-bayyinatu ala al-mudda'i. The onus or the burden of proof is upon the claimant. Okay? Wal-bayyinatu wal-yaminu, and the oath is upon the one who denies. The oath is upon the one who denies. Okay? And just this hadith, now we'll come back to it in a minute, inshallah. But bara'atu dhimma, the absolvement of guilt, the absolvement of burden, is two types. The absolvement of guilt in the right of Allah Azza wa Jal. So nothing from the right of Allah is wajib upon you except with dalil. Okay? Why? Because al-ibadat tawqifiyya, and this is something we'll learn inshallah ta'ala in Usool Fiqh more. Number two is absolvement of guilt and burden and responsibility in the right of the creation. So no one can come and demand something from you without an evidence, without a dalil or without an evidence. Okay? So they have to give evidence. So if someone basically comes up to you and says, you owe me money, then al-bayyinatu ala al-mudda'i, the burden of proof is upon the one who claims it, the one who says something, the one who claims, Ya akhi, you owe me money. Okay? And if they can't give any evidence, then al-yaminu ala man ankar, then you just take an oath by Allah that you deny this, and that's it, case closed. Case closed. Also, the next principle, number 4, is al-aslu fi sifat al-arida al-adam. This is in buyu'. This is mainly in the bab of al-buyu', which basically means if a defect, you know what a defect is, right? Aib fi sil'a. Okay, you buy a brand new, you buy a car from your friend, you give him the money, and that's it. You give him the money, he gives you the keys, he moves, and you turn the ignition, there's no engine in the car. Mushkila. Okay, this is a big aib, right? There's no engine in the car. Or the gearbox is ta'ban. Okay? Or the tires are about to fall off. But he didn't tell you all of these things. Okay? So this is aib. So the qaa'ida, the principle is, if a defect is newly discovered, okay, then it is as though it was never there in the first place. Okay? If a defect is newly discovered. So this is basically when you've both checked the car, the vehicle. Everything looks fine. Okay? No issues. You've exchanged, money has exchanged, you've given him the price, or you've paid for the car, the money, you've given him the money, he's given you the keys, khalas, you go home, next morning you wake up and there's a big scratch. There's the side of the car, the paint has been scratched. Someone took their keys and mashallah, tabarakallah, they scratched the side of the car. Okay? You phone your friend up and you say to him, Ya akhi, ittaqillah. You sold me a car basically that's scratched and there's problems, and you discover new things in the car. Okay? So again, Islam comes to the rescue, and we use this Qaa'ida, which is, if there's a newly discovered defect that wasn't discovered before, then it's as though it was never there before. So we take the word of whom? The seller or the buyer? The seller. The ba'i'. Okay? We take the word of the seller. Next Qaa'ida, number 5, is Al-Aslu Idafatu Al-Hadithi ila aqrabi awqatihi, that every event is connected to its nearest time, nearest logical time. Just write that down, and with the example things become clearer. Every event is basically attributed to its nearest time. Example, Ammar, he slept and he woke up and he slept and then he woke up. He slept at night with he's wearing the same clothes. Maybe he's traveling. And then he took a nap after Asr. So he slept after Fajr, and he slept after Asr. So before Fajr, when he woke up, he prayed Fajr and Dhuhr with that thobe. And then Asr time, he prayed Asr, and then he slept again. He woke up after Asr just before Maghrib, and then he found on his thobe Atharul Mani, the effects of sperm, or okay? He saw it, he smelt it, he knows what it looks like. Okay? He is doubtful now, there is shak now. Was this sperm from last night or from after Asr? So based on this, it's after Asr. So the event is attributed to its nearest time after Asr. Because if we attribute it to after last night, then he has to repeat how many salah? He has to repeat Fajr and Dhuhr and Asr. Okay? And Asr. So what does he have to do now? No, he has to go and make ghusl. He has to make ghusl, but he doesn't repeat the first 3 salah. Okay? Next Qaa'ida, number 6, is لا ينسب إلى ساكت قول لكن السكوت في معرض البيان بيان. Speech is not attributed to the one who is silent. This is common sense, right? Speech is not attributed to the one who is silent. But, however, silence in the context of clarity and clarification is clarification. Silence in the context of clarification is clarification. Okay, ما معنى هذا? What does this mean? Firstly, let's explain the first part of the principle. لا ينسب إلى ساكت قول. One who is silent, speech isn't attributed to this person. Okay? So, مثلا, a woman who is known as a thayyib, a woman who has been married previously. Okay? She's been married previously, she's divorced or widowed, and basically she is still able to marry again, and she has raghba and a desire to marry again. Okay? You go and basically تخطبها, you do khitbah, you propose to her basically, okay, for marriage. You go to her guardian, her wali, مثلا, and you say to the wali, I want to marry your daughter. Okay? The wali agrees, but he needs her permission, right? Obviously. So he goes to this sister, okay? And he says to her, Wallahi, Fulan ibn Fulan from Masjid Salam, he's a faqih, he studies Al-Qawaaid Fiqhiyyah, and he's finished all of these mutun ilmiya, he's a talib ilm, he's not going to oppress you, inshallah ta'ala, and I've seen and I've heard a lot of good things about this brother. Do you want to marry him? She remains silent. She doesn't say yes, she doesn't say no. Okay? This wali is not a faqih. He interprets her silence as yes. And he comes up to you and he says to you, MashaAllah, Mabruk ya akhi, Mubarak alayk. She agreed. And then you tell all your family. And then, subhanallah, you hire a venue. And MashaAllah, the ta'am, the waiters, everything. And then the wali says, MashaAllah, why you not? He says to her, why are you not preparing for your wedding? And she says, when did I say yes? Musibah hadi, this is a big musibah, right? So she didn't say yes, did she? So we use this قاعدة and principle لا ينسب لساكت قول. Okay? لا ينسب, a silent, the one who is silent, speech isn't attributed to this person. Okay? Similarly, let's say your neighbor. Okay, another mas'ala. Your child, your 5-year-old mushawish, the troublemaker, he smashes your neighbor's window. Miskin. Every week the neighbor's window is being smashed. There are no more windows left. But subhanallah, so your 5-year-old smashes your neighbor's window, okay, and your neighbor is shy. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't ask you to pay for damages because he's shy. يستحي منك, okay? يستحي منك. So his manner, sakit, silent. So you, being the bakhil that you are, subhanallah, being the miserly person that you are, and not knowing what the etiquettes of neighbors are, you say to yourself, Wallahi, he was sakit, he's silent, he didn't demand anything from me. So that means it's not wajib upon me. That means it's not wajib upon me. So you've given yourself this fatwa. But then your other neighbor who lives to the other side, who's seeing all these windows being smashed, he says to you, Ya akhi, taqillah, fi Allah azza wa jal, fi Allah azza wa jal, and pay all the damages. Pay for these windows that your 5-year-old has smashed. So he says, you say to him, Ya akhi, he was silent, can sakit. He was silent and he didn't say anything. So your neighbor, the other neighbor who's faqih, he knows Qawaaid Fiqhiyyah, he says, Ya akhi, la yunsabu ila sakitin qawl. What does that mean? Speech is not attributed to the one who is silent. How can you say that he doesn't want his money? Speech isn't attributed to him. Okay, so the hukum is mada what? You're liable for mada? For damages. You have to pay compensation for all those windows. Now let's explain the other part, okay, which is that sukut, silence in the context of clarification, is clarification. Silence in the context of clarification is as though this person has spoken. Clarification. This is an istithna and an exception for certain rulings and ahkam. If we go back to the marriage, if we go back to zawaj and nikah, if there is a sister who is a virgin, bikr, okay? You heard good things about this sister. You want to go and marry her. So you approach her wali. And you say to her wali, Wallahi, I want to marry your daughter. Nothing wrong with that. The wali agrees. And then the wali basically goes to his daughter and he says to the daughter, Wallahi, so-and-so from the family of so-and-so, someone who's known in the community, he's approached you for marriage. What do you say? What do you think? Do you want to marry him? She's too shy. Tastahi. So she remains silent. Is the wali allowed to interpret her silence as confirmation, as clarity, or not?
حسب العرف والعادة.
نعم.
عندما كان السكوت علامة الرضا والacceptance with silence. لأن العرف هنا محكم.
هناك ما هو أبين من العرف، هناك ما هو أدل وأوضح وأظهر من العرف، وهو الدليل الشرعي. هناك حديث للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، لكن كلامك صحيح يعني ما شاء الله عليك. So there is a proof and a dalil that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said إذنها سماتها وفي رواية إذنها سكوتها. يعني her approval, her silence is her approval. And the Prophet was talking about the bikr, the virgin. He said تستأمر الثيب, the thayyib, the one who's not a virgin, because usually, when women are not virgins and they've basically been, they've been married before, they have that courage and bravery to actually say yes or no, وهكذا. But if she's a young girl, مثلا, she's not been married before, then that shyness is going to be there, that natural modesty and shyness is going to be there. Even if she wants to marry this brother, she's too shy in front of her father to say yes. يعني although even if she does say yes, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If she does say yes, then لا بأس فيها. It's not haram يعني. It's not haram يعني. Let the sisters that are virgin, if they're listening يعني, they shouldn't think that subhanallah, I'll never say yes ever again. لا يعني, it's not haram يعني to say yes. But if they do, يعني in the olden times, and this was normal يعني, but the bikr would just remain silent. Would remain silent. So the Prophet said that the bikr, the virgin, her silence is her approval. And this is just istithna and an exception to this qaa'ida and to this principle. Likewise, if I give you another example, you know the muhrim. Man huwa al-muhrim? Muhrim. Man huwa al-muhrim? My brothers. Who's made hajj here? ما أحلى أحد حج. Ya subhanallah. Khwani, you have to make hajj inshallah. Make that an intention. Save up inshallah to make hajj one day. So the muhrim is the person doing hajj or umrah. And part of the manasik al-hajj, part of the actions of hajj is al-halq, that the head is shaved at the end of the ihram, okay, or shortened. But while the person is in the state of ihram, then they can't touch their hair. They can't touch their hair, or the pubic hair, or cut their nails, etc. Okay, so this muhrim man, okay, obviously this is for men. For women, no. Okay, for men, we're talking about men. So this muhrim man, he's muhrim, he can't cut his own hair, but he places, and the scholars, this is an example that the fuqaha give, ya ikhwan, okay? The scholars, for example, if a person, he places, in Arabic they call it the musa. You know what's musa? The blade. You know the blade? The musa is this small blade. What do you call it in English? The razor, yeah, the razor. So, he places some scissors next to his best friend. He places scissors next to his best friend, and he places a razor next to his best friend. And he looks at his best friend, doesn't say anything. And his best friend understands what he wants. So his best friend basically shaves his head, and he's mada sakit. So he uses the qaa'ida, la yunsab ila sakitin qawl. He says that the one who is silent, speech isn't attributed to him. I'm silent. And I'm not the one doing the halq, it's my friend, okay? So what we say to this person is, وَلَكِنَّ السُّكُوتِ فِي مَعْرَضِ الْبَيَانِ بَيَانِ. Okay, however, silence in the context of clarification and approval is approval. So it's as though they've approved here. Okay, so this is a good example, inshallah, for you to understand the qaa'ida and the principle. Just for a few more, inshallah, we'll be done in 10 or 15 minutes, inshallah. The next qaa'ida is la ibrata bit-tawahhum. Suspicion is not considered. Suspicion is not considered. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. Do not be suspicious of one another. Okay? So suspicion is not considered. Okay? So if a person in fiqh, because we're in fiqh obviously now, not in bab al-suluk wal-adab. If, for example, a person doesn't know where the qibla is, doesn't even make an effort to know where the qibla is, and they just pray as they are, this salah basically is not accepted. They have to make an effort to find the qibla. So they can, if they can, they use their iPhone or their Android and find the qibla or ask someone, etc. If they don't do any of that, then the salah isn't accepted. The next qaa'ida and principle is al-mumtani'u 'adatan kal-mumtani'i haqiqatan. Unrealistic claims are similar to impossible claims. Unrealistic claims are similar to impossible claims. An example of this is, what's impossible claim? It's something that's impossible to occur, logically. It's just impossible to occur. Unrealistic means something that is in usual circumstances, it is very difficult to occur. And it's something that is mustab'ad jiddan, something very far away, removed. It's something that's unrealistic. It can occur, but realistically speaking, it can't happen. An example is, let's use Zayd again as an example. So Zayd is very poor, faqir. And Zayd basically is known in the community as a miskeen, poor person. Okay? He cannot find sometimes even what he needs to feed himself and his family for that particular day. All of a sudden, Zayd claims and says, and goes to the Imam, and he says, so and so owes me £50,000. I lent him £50,000 last year. Okay? Is this an impossible claim or an unrealistic claim? Unrealistic. Everyone knows Zayd. Zayd has not even seen £1,000 in his life at once, let alone £50,000. Okay? So here the Imam will say what? Al-mumtani'u 'adatan kal-mumtani'i haqiqatan. He uses this qaa'ida. That which is impossible, that which is an unrealistic claim is similar to an impossible claim. It is Zayd technically could get £50,000. Technically, it's not impossible for someone who's poor to become rich overnight. It can happen. It can even happen in haram ways or halal ways, right? Zayd could have, although it's haram, could have played the lottery or something, which is haram obviously, and won the lottery. And then he got more than £50,000. It could happen, right? So Zayd now is saying he owes, he lent you £50,000. So is this claim taken seriously or discarded? It's discarded. Na'am. And that's the final qaa'ida and principle, inshallah ta'ala. And bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So next week, my brothers, there will be a revision session next week. You have to come to the revision session, okay? Very important that you come to the revision session. Knowledge is between students. Knowledge, ikhwani, is between tulab al-ilm, is between students. And you have to, inshallah ta'ala, attend the revision session. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to be traveling next week, so I'm not going to be able to inshallah, to benefit from the session. However, inshallah, bring the questions that you have, bring the questions, and use that time next week to discuss the answers to those questions and do muraja'a of everything that we've done so far until line number 18. Until line number 18. Okay, so we're already taqreeban halfway. The other half of the book, from line 20 to line 49, is the principles get shorter and shorter, and we're going to speed up inshallah ta'ala and cover more ground. The first half of the book is more in depth. The second half of the book is basically, the Shaykh mentions many dawabit and many controllers, which are inshallah ta'ala which are more straightforward bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So next week it's going to be a revision session. Please come. Ustad Abdul Basit will be with us inshallah ta'ala to help with the revision session. And bi'idhnillah ta'ala, make sure you come. Jazakumullahu khairan. Sallallahu sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
اعلم هديت أن أفضل المنن علم يزيل الشك عنك والدغن ويكشف الحق لذي القلوب ويوصل العبد إلى المطلوب.